We've mentioned Extinction Rebellion and the other movement, a broad popular movement, which is having an impact on the complacency and inaction, and it has to be said, the vested interests of governments and corporations around the world, are the school strikes. And we're lucky enough to have two school strikers here today to speak to us. So Amy and Melita will speak, and then we'll show a video, and then we'll speak again and perhaps answer any questions that people might have. So a big thank you to you for giving up your time to be with us today. Put your mouth quite close to the mic. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. It's an honour to be here. I'm Amy and I'm Melita. We as students are trying to raise awareness by bringing people together, hoping that our voices are demanding.
Do you want to move to the other one? Yeah, just speak through the other one. That was right there.
We as students are trying to raise awareness.
No? It's on. Very close indeed.
We as students are trying to raise awareness by bringing people together, hoping that our voices are demanding to educate students about climate change, demand for urgent action and climate justice for not just us individuals, but people around the world.
The main message we want to convey is that in our neoliberal society, a lot of blame is placed on individuals, and whilst we can all do our bit, there are many socio-economic factors that are a barrier to people's sustainability. So we want to show that the main responsibility should be placed on governments.
Thank you.
Youth Climate Strike Liverpool is an environmental organisation. We protest a lack of governmental action, particularly within the region.
Today we're doing what we do every month, which is we strike on a Friday. Students come out of school and they strike with us, and we congregate together in the town, make ourselves known and demand action. Today it's a bit bigger because it marks the anniversary of the first march from Greta Thunberg, and it's just really inspiring to see so many people together. Unison, PCS, UCU, the Green Party, we're bringing them all together, so we're all one force to be reckoned with.
So many people come together today with such amazing turnout, as mentioned, and it's just so inspiring to see everyone come together, and it gives me loads of hope for the future. It gives me the hope for the future strikes about what this movement has to bring. It's going to get better from here, and it's going to be more people taking part, so I'm so excited about this. Well, hopefully what we're looking for now is the continued support of the trade unions and the workers and the adults, because seeing the 3,000 to 4,000 people come out and support us today is absolutely amazing, but this needs to be continued into the future if our movement is going to gain the momentum that we need it to.
People can get involved by going to our Instagram page, strike_the alternative page, which has the same name, or liking us on Facebook and Insta, where sharing our posts, inviting people along as well, because the problem is here and it isn't going on.
So we just think that video quite nicely sums up everything that we're about and the atmosphere that's created the strike, because it is a positive atmosphere. And although it can be quite scary and anxious about thinking about our future, the strikes are a place of hope as well. And yeah, our next strike is going to be on October the 25th on a Friday. And this time we're going to have a die-in, so it's going to be more like what Extinction Rebellion do, where we all gather at Man Island at 11 AM. All this information will be on our social media pages as well. But we're all going to stage a die-in where we all lie on the floor and bring more media attention to what we're doing, just try something a bit different, because quite often we do marches through town and that's great, but we just want to keep it fresh and keep people's interest and keep it sustainable. people's attendance. And it has been, we've been doing the strike now since February, and every time there has been more and more people, and on the last March, which was in the video, we had around 4,000 people there. So it was a great turnout, and we want that to continue.
What was the date again, please?
It's the 25th of October, yeah.
Just a question, I saw this morning posted for a school strike at British Hall the 18th of October.
Oh, on the
Change the
18th,
date.
on the 8th, is that in Liverpool you saw that?
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
this morning.
Oh, there's an air strike event in Liverpool on the 18th, which we are supporting, but it is different to You Strike for Climate. I think there might be some slight confusion because the last strike we did together with Air Strike, but we've got two separate ones running. Our one's on the 25th, but Air Strike have one on the 18th. Yeah.
That's something I like this all strike. I see that the youth that are doing most of this stuff because speaking and I don't know what in general doesn't help at all. Everybody must do something individual, like Rita.
Mm-hmm.
Understand that with soul and spirit and with heart, because she understands that, and she said, I looked today on the, and she said that the Canadian Prime Minister doesn't make, but the Prime Minister said that he is in accord with everything what she said. So there are disaccordances from the start, and we should find the best way to communicate with the government, because the government has very wrong procedures, and this is the main problem.
Thank you. Absolutely right. Yes, Annie.
I'm kind of following on from that, really. I guess, how are you, or are you, encouraging people to engage their local councillors? Something that came up at the climate change listening event was how we use those systems. And I have to say, I did come to your last climate strike, and it was fabulous. It was really a sense of hope, and full on credit to you all for standing up there in front of so many people and giving it a really strong message. So yeah, so that's my question really.
To be honest, as an organisation, it's a non-party political organisation.
Okay.
So in that sense, we don't really advertise that much for people to. We haven't so far advertised for people to talk to their local councillors directly, but it's definitely something we can think about in the future. I'm sure a lot of people that are involved are also.
Not actually.
Oh, they're not.
They don't seem to be. I think that
Okay.
seems to be the feedback. I'm just thinking, given that so many local authorities are now declaring a climate emergency, there's an opportunity, there's a structure there for people to hold them to account. It's fine to kind of, say, yes, there's a climate emergency declaration. Well, actually, what's underneath that? What are the plans? And we all live in areas, and we all have at least 3 ward councillors. So it's just a thought.
Yeah, I definitely think so. We have met a few of us a couple of times with Joe Anderson to try and bring him to account, because he's declared a climate emergency in
For
Liverpool,
Liverpool, yeah.
and we've met with him. And
Lucy?
Thank you.
Without naming your schools, what reaction, or you can if you want, but what reaction do you get from your schools?
Well, I'm actually in university now. I go to the University of Liverpool, and I'm a geography student, so it's quite related to climate justice and climate change. I do human geography, so it's looking more at the social aspect of it. And in that sense, I know that all my lecturers are very supportive. A lot of them join in with the strikes. Having said that, I think that might be unique because the course I do, and because I'm at university, I can't say for schools.
As a student in sixth form, I'm 16, and I've started a new club in our school, and it wasn't there before because I've just moved to a new school. So I'd say that it is starting, it's building up, but I feel like more people need to be aware in the schools, and that's what I'm trying to do in our school. So
Great. Well, can I just say thank you? We think you're brilliant. We're all really
Moving on, could we now hear from Greta Thunberg, the person who made it all start in the beginning. Do you girls want to sit down? And you're going to join us for lunch, aren't you?
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams, my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight? You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe. The popular idea of cutting our emissions in half in 10 years only gives us a 50% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees at the risk of setting up irreversible chain reactions beyond human control. 50% may be acceptable to you, but those numbers do not include tipping points, most feedback loops, additional warming hidden by toxic air pollution, or the aspects of equity and climate justice. They also rely on my generation sucking hundreds of billions of tons of your CO2 out of the air with technologies that barely exist. So a 50% risk is simply not acceptable to us, we who have to live with the consequences. To have a 67% chance of staying below a 1.5 degrees global temperature rise, the best odds given by the IPCC, the world had 420 gigatons of CO2 left to emit back on January 1st, 2018. Today that figure is already down to less than 350 gigatons. How dare you pretend that this can be solved with just business as usual and some technical solutions? With today's emissions levels, that remaining CO2 budget will be entirely gone within less than 8.5 years. There will not be any solutions or plans presented in line with these figures here today, because these numbers are too uncomfortable and you are still not mature enough to tell it like it is. You are failing us, but the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you. We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now, is where we draw the line. The world is waking up, and change is coming, whether you like it or not. Thank you.
I'd just like to go back to the question, if you don't mind, Greta's brilliant and she's led this climate action with schools. And my local school, one of our transition parents wanted to go into Chester and asked permission to take her son out who's in year 2, and he year 6 actually did a little demonstration in the school grounds, and they've all done it through the assembly way of deciding whether to do it or not. And they posted it on our Transition Climate Change Action Facebook page to say that they were doing any action. So, you know, I think schools are taking it on board and doing what they can to support it.
Thank you. I feel sorry for the speaker who has to follow Greta. And it's Lawrence Brown from the Green Party who's going to talk to us about Green Party ideas and proposals. Thank you, Lawrence. Yeah.
Okay, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me now? Oh, that's it. Yeah, lovely. Okay, just as a bit of background, coincidentally, it's 42 years since I started work today. I started work 12th of October 1977 at the Mansion House in Calderstones Park as a junior clerk in the Recreation and Open Spaces Department of the City Council. So that's been a long time. I was in the City Council for 33 years, so I do know a fair bit about how the City Council works. It's a curious body actually, but I'll come back to that later. It's also around about 39 years since I started Liverpool Ecology Party with a few other people. And at that time, the nearest branch to us was in Crosby. So in November 1980, myself and a few friends started the Liverpool branch, which is now Liverpool Green Party. So that's been a long time coming as well. So that's a little bit of background about me. Some of the things, because I've been brought here today to ask to come along. Thanks very much for inviting me, by the way. Don't get many chances to speak at such occasions when lots of people who have similar minds to us. But what I wanted to go through today is quite what we're doing like Year of the Environment, because that's what was the brief I was given. So we started in January of this year, and this is the sort of documents that we get given to us as the agendas for City Council meetings. So this is a fairly average one, so you can see a fair bit of paper used in it. We put forward quite a sort of, I'd call groundbreaking motions to the City Council for the 16th of January 2019, commemorating or congratulating them on the Year of the Environment for the Liverpool City region, and suggesting and recommending certain policies and certain actions and strategies and all the rest that people could take, that the City Council could take, that we could press upon bodies throughout the city and throughout the city region to actually make a difference, which is obviously what the likes of Extinction Rebellion and the climate strikers that we just heard from, and Greta Thunberg and the rest of it, are all pushing for. And unfortunately, it got amended out of all recognition to the extent that at the end of it, all we could do was abstain, not even support our own motion, because it was so watered down and so damaged by what the others, the amendments had said. And all it was basically a list of things like supporting wildflowers, which is fine, but supporting litter picks, litter clearance, basically nice, easy changes or policies which the City Council are engaging in with partners, and that is unacceptable at this stage, basically. We've had enough, and we've tried the easy way of dealing with the climate emergency. And now we need to move to the much harder ways. There's going to be a programme on BBC One on Monday evening which will show some of these more difficult ways. We need to reduce meat eating. We need to move away from fossil fuels. We need to sort of change our transport habits, etc., and build more sustainable housing and all the rest of it. Now, it's all very well saying these things, but we now need to do these things. And what we were trying to do in that year of the environment motion back in January was set the scene for that, and so that we could actually move ahead. As I say, unfortunately, that opportunity was wasted, and we moved on from there. Then in March, we came up with a budget amendment. So every year, the City Council puts forward a budget proposal of how it's going to spend its money for the year ahead. So what we said, it's okay, you want to spend it in traditional, as Greta Thunberg would call it, business as usual ways of just continuing on exactly the house we've got in the past. But we said no, what we want to do is we just want to start spending some money now on addressing the climate emergency. One of the key things is getting carbon dioxide out of our air. So we need to plant a lot more trees, we need to actually physically reduce carbon, take carbon out of the air. And I know Diana before, she mentioned about carbon neutral targets that are being put in place. Again, these are just theoretical targets. I mean, the dates hardly matter, 2030, 2040, 2050, even 2025. These are just theoretical. We need to start now of actually reducing carbon and taking carbon out of the air. And that's what our budget amendment was based upon. Unfortunately, that got rejected and voted against. And so, again, we were the only four Green Party councillors that supported those proposals. And now in July, we actually got an opportunity, first ever City Council meeting at Liverpool, to discuss a single issue, and that issue is the climate emergency. And we actually took that forward, and great, there were some really good speeches in favour, and we voted to support climate emergency and to go for zero carbon, net zero carbon by 2030, which is fine. But again, what we're seeing soon after that was a proposal to dual the carriageway down Riverside Drive along the Festival Garden site, right through to Jericho Lane, and from there right through to Ossuspool Prom, through to Wegmouth Road. So for people that know that area, basically what we're doing here is increasing the amount of space used by motorised road traffic. We're talking about increasing the airport, expanding the airport into Greenbelt land. We're talking about bringing on a lot more cruise ships than we've had. We've already got a massive increase in cruise ships this year and last year, and we're going to increase that again because we're bringing online a new cruise liner terminal. None of these, by the way, none of these aspects will be considered in the carbon neutral targets that have been talked about. They're all external to the City Council's own operations. So when they talk about Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, Bristol, all these different places, the actual carbon neutral part of it is only what the City Councils are actually engaging in. And one of the key things that they're using, I don't know if anybody saw Question Time the other night with Rupert Reed, who's also a Green Party member as well as being Extinction Rebellion. But one of the key things that they're using is the fact that they've switched over to green energy tariffs instead of fossil fuel-based tariffs to provide the electricity. And they're counting that as a massive part of the zero carbon targets that they're aiming to achieve. So it's not acceptable. Basically, it's always easy wins that they're proposed and simple measures that they're proposed to achieve this dramatic change that we need to our lifestyle now. I mean, I congratulate Transition Towns because at least Transition are, although on a fairly low base level, they are actually trying to achieve lifestyle change and actually putting forward, concrete policies and ways that people can actually change things in the future. So I'm extremely disappointed with the way that Liverpool is acting, But there is cause for hope because the likes of Leeds Council, Leeds has had a climate change commission for over 2 years now. And you know, they are coming up with some really good proposals. There's massive increase in tree planting proposed in Leeds now, so that will move forward. That's fantastic news. Norwich has just been awarded an award for an architectural award, I should say, for the Sterling Prize for its new council housing, which is Passive House. And Passive House needs to be the standard that future buildings are put up to anywhere in the country, and certainly in places like Liverpool, which has got a lot of leaky old Victorian and Edwardian housing. So we need to move forward on that. We need to move forward on retrofitting. People talk about these things. I've been in the Green Party 39 years already, and in 1992, when I stood for the general election, in John Major's general election as it's called, I had global warming on my leaflet then, so we're talking a long time ago. And you know, these things have gone on for far too long. So what I'm saying is, there is best practice around. Norwich has done this. I was just reading about Sheffield with electric refuse collection vehicles and so forth. Hydrogen is being explored in a lot more detail than it has been in the past. We're moving on to a lot of different. I've always been a big believer in not reinventing the wheel and using best practice as the way of informing and educating and making policy based upon, you know, what's available in terms of science and in terms of ways of moving forward. And so I'd like to see a lot of these things put in practice in Liverpool. At the moment, I don't see that happening, and it's very disappointing. But it is good that, you know, lots of cities, Manchester's done a fantastic amount on cycling recently. If you look at Glasgow, the clear aim is to make cycling and walking the top means of transport in the future, and for all means to be subservient to that. And so we need to prioritise the things, not just in ways of policies and strategies and plans, but in the way that we are actually putting those things into practice. So, you know, we can't be having a city where you take out all the bus lanes apart from just a few in the city centre. You need to be increasing the amount of cycle space available, which is dedicated to cycling and cyclists. And so on and so forth, because it's massive change that we need now. People are not taking this on board at all. I mean, another example is we've got a council meeting on Wednesday. There's a key climate change agenda item, a motion from Councillor from the Mayor, Jo Anderson, on the first item we'll discuss on Wednesday. But again, it's nothing to do with what the City Council can do now. It's all about, we need government money to do this. Can the government set up a task force? Can the government do this? Can the government do that? None of that is going to change Liverpool City Council or the way it works or the way anybody acts in the short term, probably not for the longer term, since we've got a general election coming up. So asking the government to do anything at this stage is just nonsense. So basically we need to move away from plans, strategies, policies, you know, and listening to Annie before, it's very encouraging what you had to say, but you did say at the end, and I knew it was coming at some point, we can't guarantee that Steve Rotherham or the Liverpool City Regional Authority or anyone will take any notice of these listening events or any of the events that are going on this year. And I agree with the first thing you said, which is that I completely abhor the idea of a year of the environment in a way, because next year is not the year of the environment, but next year is as important, if not more important, than this year. So we need to move away from year of or car-free day is just car-free day one day of the year, which doesn't seem to make much difference to everybody. I'm sure most people in this room now practice, you know, what I call ecological green politics on a regular basis, day-to-day basis. We need to expand that out quickly into the rest of the community, into the rest of society, because time is extremely short and we can't be having this smoke and mirrors that the council is doing at the moment. And lots of councils are doing it. There might be some good examples, like I pointed out with tree planting in Leeds, or you know, we've got Camden have got climate change meetings, you know, of networks and so forth. And there's lots of different ideas going around, but they don't seem to be all being carried out by one council. There's not one council where you can point to and say, that council is doing everything. I think Stroud probably comes fairly close because they've got a good Green presence and they've got Labour and Lib Dems on board and so forth. So there's political will there. You need that political will. And I think unless you go to the other European countries, you're not finding that that political will which should exist to address these key issues. So I think I've probably said enough. I've got a few items of paper out, but it's not really worth going through because, you know, as a Green politician, I've been pushing for a long, long time. I've been a councillor for 5.5 years now. I have got some things through council. There's something called One Tree Per Child, which started in Australia, which is the idea that every child should plant a tree. Unfortunately, the mayor thinks it's his idea, but it was my idea to bring it into Liverpool because we were the second city after Bristol to put it into effect, and so on and so forth. You know, there's lots we can do. There's lots and lots we can do. It's no good just turning around and saying it's the government's fault or we need the government's help to achieve this. We all know that there's plenty we can do now to get to a greener future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to be a bit selfish and ask my own question to begin with, which is when are the city mayoral elections due?
Okay, so next year is the perfect storm of elections. So there's the third round of local elections, so the city councillors will be elected beginning of May. But there's also the city mayor election, so Joe Anderson or whoever is the candidate for the Labour Party at that time will be subject to the ballot box beginning of May. And it's also, because of the way that the city regions were set up, it's also Steve Rotherham's election on that day as well. Not to mention the Police and Crime Commissioner, so there's actually at least 4 elections on that day if we don't get a general election as well.
Okay. We've got time for some questions. Could you phrase it as a question, not as a lengthy statement, please, just in terms of time? At the back.
I'm from Wigan, so we're not in Merseyside, we're in Greater Manchester, but we managed to get our local authorities now listening to participatory budgeting. So we had somebody come and do a thing on participatory budgeting, how that would work for citizen assemblies, etc. Have you anything like that going through the council? Is any chance of getting that in?
We used to have some participatory budgeting in Liverpool actually a few years back, but I think probably because of financial cutbacks, it does mean spending a little bit of money out in the community to get community involvement. I suspect that's why that's been knocked on the head. I'm disappointed at the way that the council spends some of its money. There's £1 million set aside for what they call neighbourhood funds, and so each councillor gets a small proportion of that which you can spend on projects in their ward. Most just spend it not taking account of any community decisions or communications. They just spend it on what they want, what they see they want in the ward. So I am trying to ask people, and I know in St Michael's, which is where we've got the 3 councillors, they've actually done a proper system of communication with the community to actually come up with the ideas of what they will spend some of that money on. And there's also, if you check out Leith Chooses as well, which is Scottish council near to Edinburgh, they've actually done that in a fantastic way. So they involve the whole community. Yeah.
Do it so that all the projects that come in are around climate change.
You can do, yeah. I mean, with my other hat on, which is me, ward councillor hat on, we've got to take account of the fact that there's lots of things. We do work with charities and so forth as well on issues, so you know charities can benefit. I mean, there's some poverty in the city, so you know I need to spend some of the money on poverty alleviation and so forth.
I'm giving people who haven't yet answered the question a chance to ask their questions first, if you don't mind.
Questions, I don't.
Okay. Anybody else? Saeed, Annie?
Yeah, just a quick one really. Given that Liverpool City Council, as you say, sorry. Given that Liverpool City Council has declared a climate emergency, what are the requirements that any new policies and strategies have to be developed through the lens of climate emergency?
Yeah, Unfortunately, the wheels of the council turn slowly. It really is a bureaucratic, bit of a nightmare, really. As a result of the climate emergency being set on the 17th of July, we've actually got now a select committee and a cabinet member for climate change. And the first meeting, I understand, but I only got told by receiving something through the post, to say that the first meeting about climate change select committee will be the 6th of November. So we'll be able to start sorting out that sort of question as to quite what all reports or all policies have to go through as far as climate change is concerned.
Is that an open meeting?
Friend.
Question.
Is that an open
It will,
public meeting?
it will be, Lucy, yeah. It'll be open to the public, yeah.
Could I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How does the plant a tree per child project work? I mean, how many trees would that even be?
How does the climate per child tree project work?
One tree per child, yeah, okay. So what they do is they select a year, probably one of the later years of the junior school, so when children are about 9 or 10, and then basically each of those children is given an opportunity to plant a tree somewhere within the vicinity of the school. Basically it could be a few miles away. There's no problem about getting hold of trees. Mersey Forest can get hold of thousands and thousands of trees. The problem is getting them planted in the right areas in a way that is sustainable and will go on for years and years, because it's developed, it's the actual maintenance of those trees to some extent, which takes the time and the effort.
Saeed?
Yes, thank you. Transport is an essential item of environment, pollution, CO2 and so on. What happened to the tram project? In the past used to be run through the city centre, reduce congestion, buses. Is there any proposal in the future to implement this project?
The tram project got dropped by basically the government refused to fund it at the end of the day, as far as I understand. It's mentioned from time to time, but I think now we're at the stage where we could, if we got hydrogen buses and we got electric buses on stream, I don't see why buses can't do the job that the trams could have done some years ago.
It was the Lib Dem council as well at the time.
Yeah. I think it's still an option, and certainly for a couple of the lines at least. But I've not heard about it being resurrected to any great degree recently, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa?
You hear a lot in terms of opinion polls and paper clips about population changing their views on climate change and seeing it as a much more important issue. Is that something that you hear in terms of voters' intentions on the doorstep?
Not really at the moment, no. Part of the problem we've got, obviously, is Brexit, because Brexit's just dominating the whole of the mainstream media discussions as far as politics is concerned. And so the climate emergency, and in fact, Rupert Reed referred to this on Question Time on Thursday. The whole media need to change their attitude, because BBC at the moment, and I presume ITV as well, the mainstream media are ignoring what's going on in London at the moment with Extinction Rebellion. You're very, very lucky if you get on any of those programmes 20 to 25 seconds. That's the maximum on the flagship news programmes from the mainstream media. If it's not being broadcast, people aren't thinking about it. So climate change, environment in general, future of people, population, is quite low on people's agenda unless something dramatic occurs and it rises to the top or near to the top for a short amount of time. It needs to be right up there, which is what you're talking about. But getting up there continually is difficult.
Lucy?
So you mentioned the European cities when they're doing it much more cohesively and workably. How have they, do you know how they've got past the political divisions, competitions, things that are affecting the here?
Well, one of the ways was Amsterdam back in the 1950s. They basically got totally fed up with the number of child pedestrian injuries and cycling injuries. So it's also to do with blocking roads. They actually blocked roads in Amsterdam, and that led to the change that, you know, Amsterdam then became designed around the bicycle. And so that
So you think it's citizen-led, then we just
that was citizen-led.
politicians?
I think sometimes individual politicians can have a substantial effect. Green capital, etc. Bristol was the green capital very recently. Nantes has been a green capital, and that is an extremely green city as well. So we can, you know, sometimes get individuals that will bring those forward.
As one of the people, which probably most of us were, who demonstrated for the climate emergency in Liverpool, I am really angry if they're ticking that box and taking the political kudos and not doing anything about it, you know, long term properly.
Yeah.
So it's how we then address that. They've gone, oh yeah, climate emergency.
Yeah. One of the things that we wanted from the 17th of July meeting, which is where the climate emergency was declared, was for that body and that cabinet member to have more executive power than just an average cabinet member. And the same with the select committee. Select committees, the way they work in Liverpool and a lot of cities as well, is that they can be ignored. They're just advisory, and that's not acceptable. They need to have some executive power so that they can actually effect change, because otherwise all the power just lies with the mayor and one or two other people in the cabinet. A good example of that is we've now got, and I know you were there, Lucy, the Flatiron site, which is a piece of green space. It's much overlooked, but it's actually quite important in that area of the Dingle. And the problem is that there's going to be a council meeting, there's going to be a committee meeting in a couple of weeks' time where that will be discussed about actually getting rid of that piece of land. It's got over 100 mature trees on it. We need to retain, support, save all those pieces of land like that. I've handed out leaflets and stood in the heavy rain as you did in a week, and to try and stop that happening. But, you know, this is just for some sort of built development, which just shouldn't be happening to that extent, I'm afraid.
Peter, do you want to ask a question?
Just about what said about the trees. That and I read about trees because I read about everything. That at first the big forests, old forests, that are important because they produce the most of the wood. Because from the old trees can easier cut that quantity of what they need, but from a new forest is very hard. Second, what is the guarantee that the politician wouldn't sabotage, not direct, but in other ways, cannot be increase the number of trees and other problems. We can't know anything about this. Only that we try to put. Third, that the cleaning, that they put, population take off from the ocean the old plastic, but who had thrown in the ocean? And we can do anything to balance that disaster, what is producing always faster and faster, but we don't even the smallest part, because children can't take the whole plastic from the ocean, from the forest and from everywhere.
Thank you,
This
Peter.
is ridiculous.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, so there's two issues there. One's trees and one's plastic. On the trees issue, I think that demonstrates how difficult and complex a lot of ecological and green issues are nowadays. When I started back in 1980, it might have seemed a lot simpler. A good example again is the barrage that was mentioned before. The Mersey barrage was proposed in late 1980s to be a big, solid construction across the river. It would have made massive ecological destruction. It's tempered now, it's different, but the fact is, spending all that money, investing all that concrete into a massive big project, is that the right way to go now? Are we too short of time? Greta Thunberg's just said 8.5 years. You know, we've got so little time left to engage and to actually change things. So trees is a difficult one. We do need to plant more trees, but they need to be in the right places. and we need to, massively uplift the numbers that we're doing. But we need to do it the right way, and we need to do it in the right places, as I say, so that needs to be done. On the plastic pollution, that is an example of where, for me, consumerism and our way of life just produces plastic after plastic after plastic, all every day, all over the world. And we need to hone that back and find different ways. It's done on small levels at the moment, and Transition are doing some work on that, I'm sure. But we actually need to change our lifestyles, but have the ability to avoid those plastics. That's the only way at the end of the day. Trying to collect it once it's actually in the oceans, or it's on the beaches, or it's it's in your recycling bins, is not acceptable.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. I guess from what we've heard, it might be a good idea if all of us weekly pester our local councillors, because if they don't hear what our concerns are in the surgeries, it's not going to happen. And bearing in mind elections are coming up, we could give a Joe Anderson co the same kind of message. We now welcome Paul Riley, who works for the City Council and is going to speak about the work of the Green Champions. So we now hear what's going on in Green.
I can't believe you put me on. I just need to start by saying I'm not a councillor, so don't shout at me. I actually work for Liverpool City Council. I'm an employee. So my role is I work in children's services, so our team works in trying to reduce school exclusions. So basically, once I've got my screens up, I will give you a bit of a chat. Okay. So a lot of things that people can talk about today are involved with one issue that we all have to a greater or less extent, which is climate anxiety. It's a huge issue, and as someone who doesn't work in climate and doesn't have that ability to do that in their everyday job, I feel like completely overwhelmed quite a lot of the time around that kind of stuff. What can I do? I'm only one person. This is a massive issue. What can I possibly do? Having worked in climate outside of work quite a lot for a number of years, I've seen a lot of instances where people have been able to do huge changes and that have a lot of impact in the world. Greta and hospital strikers and all these kind of people doing something really, really important. So what we've done in Liverpool is, what I've done, I started to look at how to make a big change myself. I came across this group, which is 80,000 Hours. They're a non-profit group which looked at how to make the biggest impact in your life and in your work. It's called 80,000 Hours because the average person's career is 80,000 hours. And if you're only doing your advocacy work and your green environmental work outside of your work hours, then you're missing a massive amount of time. So 80,000 Hours put forward 4 different areas in which you can actually make a huge impact. The first one's earning to give. So if you are a person who is in a very high-paid job or has the potential to earn an awful lot of money, then you could give up your job and go out and plant trees or go out and retrain to become a nurse. But if you consider that you maybe earn £100,000 a year, if you quit your job and then go to train to be a nurse and earn £20,000 a year, then you're one nurse. However, if you try and earn £150,000 a year and live off £40,000, you can pay for a number of other nurses. So it's not necessarily a situation where you need to quit your job and retrain and do something else. You can do a lot of other things. So advocacy is one that I'm going to talk about a bit later on, so we'll skip over that one a little bit. Research obviously speaks for itself quite a lot, and direct work, as I said, you could say that would be a nurse. So advocacy, I decided that retraining is a waste of time because I've got a lot of experience and I've got a lot of time, and I have an opportunity where I am. And if you're in an organisation, then you can look at what you can do within that organisation. So what can I do with where I currently am? What resources are we not using well? In Liverpool City Council, we have 4,600 employees. So it's a really good opportunity for advocacy. It's essentially a good version of a pyramid scheme. And the idea sort of has been around a lot, obviously, and we've had a couple of people come to Transition Liverpool to talk about it. We had someone talking about recycling schemes in schools. She was the person at the top who was really concerned about everything, and she recycled as much as she could, but she was getting very overwhelmed by the fact that she wasn't doing enough. So she started a recycling scheme in her school, and she started to get her children involved in it. And the children got the parents involved, and the parents started bringing all their unrecyclable goods to the school. And after a few months, she started to recognise that the parents were bringing these things in, but they were quite shamefaced about doing it. And then 6 months later, they were changing their buying habits and actually being able to reduce the amount of waste in a huge environment, in a huge area within the city. She's now working on moving that to other schools as well, so obviously the area of expansion increases. So Liverpool City Council are quite well set up for bringing new ideas in from within their own staff. So we've got the Innovate scheme, which basically encourages staff members to email people and to submit a suggestion. Anything that you can think of to make our services better, to improve customer service, to reduce waste, to cut costs. Because obviously we are under a lot of pressure, we haven't got enough money for anything, and so any good ideas we try and take on board. So our pitch was the Green Champions. Every city council office already has a charity champion. We nominate charities every year, corporate charities, and we do fundraising. Those charity champions will work in their offices to try and get people to do bake sales or wear a silly hat for 50p or things like that. And they do end up being able to give a lot of money to their charities. The idea is that we have Green Champions in all of these offices as well. As I said, we already employ 4,600 staff. So the communication possibilities, both upwards and downwards, in terms of talking about climate change and getting it on the agenda and getting it in people's brains, is actually really, really exciting. And so we're growing ideas within the workforce and beyond, because obviously if every person who picks up on a green idea within Liverpool City Council can go home and talk to their parents about it, or talk to their children, or talk to their neighbours. And it's that idea again of advocacy and passing those ideas out. So we're trying to build an organisation that we can be proud of and I can be proud to be a part of, because I am aware that we are seen as the bad guys quite a lot of the time. So this is just a screenshot of the post. So this went out over the Liverpool intranet when the council decided, at the same time as talking about launching the climate emergency declaration, we launched the Green Champions initiative within the council. So we're trying to get all of the teams within the city council to have at least one Green Champion so they can disseminate views and they can talk to people about green initiatives and climate change. So, as Lawrence has already said, the council declared a climate emergency in July. At the same time, we launched the Green Champion scheme, and we're looking at what we can do as an organisation and a workforce to reduce our impact on the environment. There's currently about 40 Green Champions throughout Liverpool City Centre and the City Council, and we're actually chaired by a couple of assistant directors from the Communities and Environment Directorates, which is good in a way, I think, because it's not just the people like me on the ground who have, it's not just a talking shop, we have people who actually we go and speak to, and they have the ability to make changes within the council. It's very different to the council chambers and how things are run. But we're trying to make sure that as an organisation, we are green and we are able to change that for ourselves. Our motivation is to practice what you preach. So we can't say, yes, it's a climate emergency if the organisation of Liverpool City Council is still being incredibly wasteful, and it is being incredibly wasteful. And as Lawrence has already alluded to, it takes a long time to make changes. One of the things that we're trying to do is to do those changes a lot quicker by having everybody on board, because if everyone's pushing for it within the city councils have to listen. So we want to improve how Liverpool City Council communicates with the city. We are doing some good stuff. Just one example of this, I went to one of the first Liverpool Green Champion meetings, and I was kicking off about black bags and all of the waste that goes into landfill and that we burn. And there was someone in that champion meeting who is from recycling and is from the waste stream. And I didn't know that there's a project currently on the way to actually get rid of black bag collections in Liverpool. There's lots of things that are actually already happening that we don't know about. And part of the reason is because the Liverpool City Council aren't good at communicating it. So it would be great if we were able to build communication networks so people don't have to do a campaign about black bags, for instance, because we're already doing that, so they can put pressure on something else in a different area. We want to improve the green credentials and environmental awareness of LCC and its workforce. So obviously that's again talking about the advocacy kind of thing, and making climate a key focus for every operational decision. So when we're looking at, when I talk to some people in my office about it, they still think I'm some sort of mad hippie. But the more we talk about it, the more we're going to try and ensure that every decision that we make as a council strategically is about climate. Climate is first and foremost. It's not just a specific thing, it is the thing over which all of the things are really. So we're trying to make sure that it is a focus. And we want to become a model of best practice for climate conscious organisations. So far we are in talks with directors about a number of big changes to the organisation. One of these is the Sustainable Staff Travel Plan. This is a paper that has been passed out to the Green Champions for our comments. It's something within the City Council, and so we're trying to ensure that we have new ideas and new ways of reducing our carbon footprints, using less cars, using carpools, using the city bikes, ensuring that teams that don't have to travel maybe don't come to the city centre, because then we don't need to travel into the city centre, using public transport for our staff rather than having to have people rely on their own transport. A lot of things going on around there. We've got a climate-specific news section in the Daily Council newsletter now, so that's something that goes out into everyone's inbox on a daily and weekly basis. There's been a Brexit section for 30 years, it seems, but there's now a climate section, so not only are we're getting that in someone's face every single day, so whether they read it or not, they see the word climate, they see the word environment, they may start looking into it, they may follow the links, and they may start reading about it, and that's a general awareness that we need in order to try and make sure that we can make changes. We've introduced a climate champion, and we've introduced each climate champion on the intranet, so if anyone in any of the offices wants to speak about anything, have an idea, or wants to send us an email, they're easy to find, and so we can have those conversations. And we also created a Green Ideas Innovate scheme, so that is actively encouraging everyone in the council to come up with their own ideas of how we can make an impact, and then to pass it on to us. And we can pass it on to our directors, and we can actually have those actions put in quite quickly. So this is the first big thing that we've done. As I say, we've only been around a couple of months, but the Green Team Challenge is something that's gone out across the City Council. And prizes up for grabs for every team. We're asking people basically just to come up with ideas, things that they can do in their own teams. For instance, meat-free Mondays, car-free days, car share clubs, using city bikes, doing a litter pick outside the office or in the local community, agreeing to reduce our office thermostats a couple of degrees, going paperless, even though we should have already done that, or taking a turn to switch off all the monitors and lights at the end of the day. It does sound small in and of itself, but if you've got 4,600 people thinking about this and making those actions, then it is a really important thing and it can make a big change. So back to advocacy. Again, I'm going to refer back to Lawrence. We were asking what's the, someone asked about what is like on the doorstep. Is there a big wish for change? Councillors can't really do things unless people want it to happen, because unfortunately our political system is made of people getting votes. If people don't care about the climate, they're not going to pass their councillors about it, and so it's not going to be getting onto the agenda. This is our way of doing it, and I think it's something that everyone can do in their own organisations. If you can set something up like this where you have a conversation and it can go down to our 4,600 staff, and then it can go on from that throughout the city centre, throughout the Liverpool region, then it is a huge vehicle for change. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Hi, to do as a staff member, how does it all work? Because, for instance, you're putting forward sustainable travel plan for staff and to get, say, electric cars or full whatever. So does that then have to go back to councillors to be voted for? How does it all work and how's it going to get implemented?
Well, the city council staff structure is obviously slightly different from the council chamber. So we do have a budget and we are able to make some operational changes. I actually asked that question when I got handed the piece of paper to say, I mean, how far do you want me to go on this? Because I could go up here, and what we're basically being told is we need to shoot for the ideal, because there's obviously going to be people in charge of money who are going to try and reduce it. So hopefully we'll be able to meet somewhere in the middle, and then we'll try and keep pushing on from there.
Saeed?
Thank you. That's interesting model of the champion. But there are, as you mentioned, there are so many ideas. One of them already exists on the domestic collection of rubbish and recycling. City Council introduced a SAC made of heavy duty plastic, yes? Tins and metals and glasses. Now, to encourage residents to recycle, maybe you give them some incentive. Either you put in the letterbox town voucher or something, Liverpool Town, to go to where their council tax. Each week they collect them. Yeah, that's an idea. The second thing, which is being used in Europe, but it has to be in partnership with supermarkets, similar to the city bikes, yes? When you go to the supermarket, you bring all your bottles, glasses, plastic, you put them in this machine, it will collect some voucher and they give you that. I think it's being used somewhere in the south, but not so far in the northwest. But has to be in partnership with the city council and supermarket.
Yeah, I mean, that's more of a council chamber thing rather than a Liverpool City Council staff thing. However, these are the kind of ideas that we are able to feed up. We were invited to the Earth Climate Change Declaration, and we were invited to speak to Laura Robinson-Collinson and all the people who can actually make these ideas. So we can't make that decision, but it is another structure that we can use to fund things and push ideas through.
Lucy?
I've actually heard about this through friends and family of the council, and it's very effective, especially like the incentive that you've given. It's, I can't remember what it is, but prize, making it like a competition.
Yeah.
I think people really react well to that, and then obviously for each of those council staff, you've got all their friends and family coming out from them, so I think it's really good and effective. And I know it's not about council policy, but you might know from the inside. Do you know what they're doing about chemicals that they spray the streets with? Because that's what I was going to suggest for later, but if it's something that's already being discussed.
I don't know what that does mean. It's something that we can bring back to our internal suggestion scheme, and something then, because there will be someone within the Green Champions who works in that directorate, and they can bring that directly to the director. It's a good way of us being able to filter things, because obviously you get 1,000 suggestions and maybe 700 of them might be a bit fanciful, so we can filter that and pass one through that we think can actually help.
The thing is, the guys, and they are mainly guys from what I can see, are spraying. It's glyphosate that they're spraying, and they're not wearing masks. So not only for us, but for them, they call it
mental.
Clean label.
Yeah.
I said to them, why are you not wearing a mask? Oh, it's clean label. It's Monsanto glyphosate that they're using. So on the staff level, as a Green Champion, you know, I think they need to know that. And I said to them, you need to go and talk to your bosses in your union, because
I'm going to make a note of that.
it's called mental.
Yeah. Gentlemen over there.
It's not about Green Champions, but someone may have covered this slightly earlier, but within the council, why is there not food waste collection in Liverpool at all? I've moved here in the past couple of years from down south, and I'm completely used to having a food inspection box in my house, and my rubbish, my household waste had tripled probably from what it was previously because of having to put things like the Do you know anything about what?
Well,
why that
we
is,
did have
what that
someone
is?
from Liverpool City's recycling and waste management team come and speak to us, and we weren't able to get a straight answer. But they are working on a number of projects, including the giant. Well, yeah, basically. But they're looking at this giant
Big Berthas.
the Big Berthas, trying to get communal waste going. So it is a plan, as well as getting rid of black bin bags, to get to put food recycling in soon. But yeah, it's probably not going to happen quickly enough.
Lady at the back.
Do you have the opportunity when you have your meetings with all the green champions and the hazards? Is it the director of the environment?
Assistant Director of Environment and Assistant Director of Communities.
Okay. Do you have the opportunity to have external speakers come in and give, for example, I think it's rejected that, it's rejected land management and all that sort of stuff. So do you have the opportunity to do that? Because that obviously, again, advocacy. If they understand that they can pass it against
It's not an idea that we've thought about so far. As I say, we've only been going for 3 months, but we're still building how we run. We're still trying to figure it out as we go along. So anyone who wants to come and give a speech or give any information to us, or even pass stuff that we can disseminate throughout the council, is more than welcome to.
Yes, the lady over there.
Sorry, what do you mean by black bin bags? What's going on with that?
So it's something I find quite annoying. Just the fact that it is all black bags, black bag and waste collection. There's other ways of doing it. There's other ways that you don't have to use plastic. Essentially, throw plastic away. There's a lot of schemes throughout the world that don't use this, and we do. And we try to do it in different ways, but they won't allow it. They say you have to put things in black bin bags. But they are working on getting rid of that, so that's taking another source of plastic out of the waste stream.
Sorry.
Yes, you will be able to eventually when they get that sorted. Yeah.
Do you,
I'm not working on them. That's just a problem that I brought to them, and they said the council are already working on it in a different way. So what I presume is going to happen is they're going to get rid of bags entirely and use large bins which you can put the waste directly into.
we really need to break soon because I've brought I've been such a ruthless organiser of the schedule. I've brought lunch forward by 15 minutes. But Paul Riley here is a member of our organisational group. He'll be around all day. So if you have points you want to make or questions you want to ask, I'm sure Paul will be very pleased to talk to people during the rest of the day. Can I just say that, sorry.
That's all right. I was just going to ask a question. It's fine.
Oh, go on then.
Okay. Briefly to the gentleman at the back around kind of food waste. You can actually make your own worm composting bin really easily. And I have got a little template, not on me, but I can send to people, and you could probably Google or Ecosia something too, because that's really easy. I have a tiny backyard. I have had a worm composting facility for donkey's years, and it works. And the other thing was, I was just thinking, are you rolling out the Green Champions model or connecting in with the other local authorities within the city region? It sounds like you've got huge potential to share something there.
We'd like to. It's very difficult to work with the councils for numerous reasons. In my day job, I'm in this as well, but I don't think there's enough time to do everything that we want to do. I don't think there's enough people in the organisation yet to do that, but it is one of the things that we want to do quite quickly.
Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry, Mark.
I just wanted to say that if anyone does make their own compost bin, I have enough worms probably to last everyone here.
The other thing is that if you can afford it, for £120 you can buy a hot bin, which will digest everything, meat, food scraps, the lot. Moving on, I just want to comment on, there's a bit of a binary debate about, do we get, affect the political organisations, do we act to change the minds of government, local and national, or do we do individual things? And people very often, if you talk to friends and family or neighbours or people in the queue, they will say, I can't make a difference, I'm only one person, what difference can I make? As one person you can make a tremendous difference, partly because the way that we're hardwired as human beings means that if you hear an idea, you will think about it, you will adopt it consciously or unconsciously. My behaviour has been radically changed, sometimes by one comment that somebody has made. The second thing is that there are some really ingenious links between individual action and corporate results. And one I read about in connection with the opencast mining proposals in Australia. They're thinking of opening up huge swathes of land and digging the coal out as if. What people there are doing, having made no impact at all on the corporation or the government, they're looking at the people who insure the operation. And if they find out that their insurance company is insuring that mining operation, they withdraw. And that is beginning to really worry the insurance companies. So there are ways in which we don't have to be either one or the other. We can actually be both. Right, I will invite you soon to go out for lunch, but first of all, I want to say something about this afternoon's activities. We're having an open space, which is a transition model. I'm sorry, Paul. He's very shy. It's a transition model way of working, and we'd invite you all to have a think over lunch and maybe chat to people about an idea, a project, a scheme, a community activity, a small business that you could set up, which is going to make an impact. And in the afternoon, what we'll try to do is to get people together in groups to make that happen. And then in the November meeting or Transition Cafe, people can come and report back where they're up to. In terms of the lunch, help yourselves. Please don't eat in here because the carpets are new and very hard to clean. You can eat in the foyer. You can probably eat in the small meeting room and in the library. And if you'd be so kind as to put your dirties back on the counter, we'd be most grateful. Thank you very much, and see you this afternoon. Thank you.
Can I just say, it's really good you've got a donation box at XR. I was down there this week. I've just looked on my phone and I just want to give you one of the costs that they're having to do at the moment. One cost is legal costs. Thousands of people are being arrested, people who can be and volunteer to be arrested, it's thousands this time. But obviously XR is trying to provide legal representation for them. And from the April arrests, it's estimated that £750,000 is needed to help the people that were arrested. To date, the legal fund has only generated £250,000. Now, I know lots of donations are coming in, but that's just one area which is really important to support these people that have given themselves potential to be in jail. And I just think that's a big sacrifice they've made, and it'd be lovely to support them. And that's just one area that they need funding for. So thank you if you've already donated, and please give more if you can.
Thank you.
Thank you.